Hey everybody, it's Polish Pete, and this is my top 3 fall baits. Starting out with Old Faithful right here. I know it gets redundant with me always talking about a jig, but let's face it, this thing catches them in cold water, warm water, dirty water, clean water, you name it, a jig works. It's a big bite getter, and honestly, as much as I probably say it shines at one certain time of the year, every time of the year, it might be the fall. The fall time period is when those fish really do tend to scatter out a little bit and hang on to whatever vegetation's left or whatever cover. They're not usually as grouped up as they normally are in those summer months where they're offshore on structure. A jig can be a great way to get quality bites. So if you might not be getting a ton of bites throughout the day, but you're gonna get bigger, more quality bites. I can say for myself, when it gets to those later fall months, I lock a jig in my hand for the whole day, and if I get 5 bites, they're usually the right 5 bites. So one of my top 3 is definitely going to be a jig. And by the way, I like to go with the more darker colors like the black, blues, and the purple and browns and things like that in the fall too. Just a little tip for myself. Next up is the old school famous spinnerbait. A lot's been talked about spinnerbaits of late. They've kind of had a resurgence in tournament angling. They kind of went away for a little bit. We saw the swim jig and the chatterbait take all the thunder away from the old school spinnerbait, and now it's come back with a vengeance, and it's been cashing a lot of checks. This particular brand, Bassman right here, is from Australia, and our friend Carl Jochimson brought them over and has already been cashing checks on these things, and we've seen our friend Seth Fighter cash checks with them. This is a killer spinnerbait, and it comes in some unique sizes and blade configurations, but to be honest, any spinnerbait in those fall months really tends to shine. Something I spoke about earlier with the jig is those fish tend to spread out a little bit and kind of hang on to that remaining vegetation. They kind of go, you don't get them as schooled up and as active as they normally were, but they still have to feed up for those fall months. They're looking for an opportunistic bigger meal. So a spinnerbait gets you those big bites, but it also allows you to cover a lot of water throughout those fall months. You can travel around, fish a whole body of water in a day, or at least a big chunk depending on how big your lake is. Just move around, cover water, cast and retrieve, and you can usually locate some fish that are looking for an opportunistic meal. And a great way to do that is with the Old Faithful spinnerbait. And the third one in my top 3 fall baits is the jerkbait. I chose this one over a frog or over a few of the other ones that I love to throw in the fall, because this one is probably, of any bait period in the fishing world, the most versatile when it comes to geography all around the entire Western Hemisphere. I'm sure it obviously works great in the Eastern Hemisphere too, but as far as my fishing knowledge goes, in the Western Hemisphere, a jerkbait catches them everywhere. Windblown reservoirs, rivers, highland lakes, natural lakes, glacial lakes like we have here in Minnesota. They work everywhere, and when those water temps are dropping, sometimes you get fish that can't really key in on a certain water column that's easy to catch them in, like let's say the surface or right down there on the bottom. If they're stuck in the middle there following a thermocline or any type of temperature change in the water, a jerkbait can be a phenomenal way to get lethargic, inactive fish to key in and bite. A lot of these fish are looking to feed because they're getting their bodies ready to go through those cold winter months, but they're not necessarily super active and full of energy because of the dropping water temps. There probably has never been a better bait than a suspending jerkbait to get those type of fish to get excited about getting that opportunistic meal. So if I'm gonna pick top 3 baits for me to tie on to go fishing in the fall, it's definitely gonna be a jig, a spinnerbait, and a jerkbait. Go catch them.